What is up, guys? I'm going to be talking to you today about 5 ways you can avoid the Christmas weight gain. Alright? So, as you can see, I've already started putting it on with the Santa beard. But these are some simple tips you can use because I know a lot of people stress around this time of year. They don't want to put on a lot of weight, but at the same time, they don't want to tell everyone, oh, I don't want to eat any food. I don't want to, I don't want to say no to people because you still want to enjoy yourself. So I want you guys to be able to enjoy yourself and still avoid that winter weight gain. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is always on the Christmas day, right? Christmas day is probably going to be your biggest day of eating, maybe New Year's, things like that. So what you want to focus on is making sure that the first plate, whatever you're going to have, is making sure that it's filled up with vegetables and lean protein. Now, why do I suggest this? Is because vegetables are full of fiber and protein is really satiating, and so are vegetables. So if you can fill all those things up with, like on your first plate, it's going to avoid you having to binge on other food because you're still going to be digesting that food and breaking it down, and it's going to start making you feel fuller before anything else, which is a really good idea. So I always like to literally, my first plate will be just chock full of like salads, like things that are very voluminous but aren't going to take up a lot of calories. So salads like green leaf lettuce, zucchini, capsicum, cucumber, raw onion, all those foods like broccoli, cauliflower, all the foods that aren't very starchy, that aren't full of carbohydrates, but they're really easy for you to be able to just fill up on your plate, and it makes it really voluminous. Once you've got all your veggies on there, then you want to choose your lean sources of protein first. So lean sources of protein are going to be things like, your chicken breasts, or your grilled chicken, or like prawns. Everyone's going to probably have prawns and seafood. So always go for the leaner options first because it's going to contain the least amount of calories. Now, once you've gotten through your first plate, well, you're pretty much laughing then because your body's already starting to get full, like you're already starting to fill up your stomach, and then you're already sending signals from your brain down your stomach, starting to signal it's full. So when it comes to the second plate, third plate, however many you're having, I eat a lot, you're not going to eat as much food. And then for the second plate, that's when you start choosing the other stuff. Go for the pasta bake. Go for all the other, whatever else there is. You're probably going to have a big fatty roast there, or whatever you're going to have. That's when you go for the second amount because it's going to be less detrimental to you, and you're not going to be able to eat as much. And then when it comes to dessert time, you're hardly going to be able to eat as much, but you're still going to be able to enjoy the food you want. So number one is to fill up on veggies and protein before you choose anything else. Now, the second thing you want to focus on is making sure that you're like trying to do intermittent fasting, which I like to suggest. Now, the reason I suggest doing intermittent fasting is because that same type of thing, if you push those meals back further and further, your stomach isn't used to consuming large quantities of meal at a time. So what that's going to do is it's going to save you having to eat so much, right? Because if you go, all right, I'm not going to eat until 2 or 3 o'clock when it's lunchtime, and then I can only eat for a short amount of time, you're not going to be able to consume as much food. Now, there's different types of ways to do intermittent fasting. You can do 16 hours of not eating. You can do 18, 20, 24, however long you want to go for. It's up to you. But the longer you put it off and the less period you have to eat, the more likely you're going to eat less food. So that's a really good thing I like to focus on. The third thing is do not mix your alcohol and drink and food at the same time, because that is just a combination of a crap load of calories at once. And once you an alcohol's so easy to consume, I know, but it's also so much full of calories. So if you are going to be having alcohol, what I would suggest is making sure you eat your meal first and then have alcohol after. Don't consume the two because it's just a fat bomb, and especially when you're having ham and things like that, it's salty, it's high in sodium, which means you're going to want to drink more and more. But I want you to avoid it. So when it comes to alcohol, make sure you're drinking just water when you're with your meal, and then have your alcohol after, okay? So far, you've started doing veggies and protein before your first meal, before you start eating more crappy food. You're doing some type of intermittent fasting, and you're avoiding alcohol when you're eating food. Following those 3 simple tips alone on Christmas Day are going to save you a shit ton of calories that you would have otherwise gorged on. Now, I want to talk about some things you can focus on during the week, right? During the week, set yourself a goal as to what's going to happen. So, obviously this week coming in, you're probably going to have Christmas drinks. You're going to go out for lunches and stuff like that. Just set yourself a rule. Say, okay, I'm going to stick to 2 drinks, or I'm going to stick to X amount of food. That way you're not going to overindulge. When you write yourself rules and you set them, you're most likely going to stick to them. It's what happens when you don't know what's going to happen ahead of time. It's what happens when you're just like, you know what, I don't know what's going to be here. I'm just going to eat whatever. I'm just going to drink whatever. That's when you can just overindulge, and that's when people start really, really stuffing up. So think ahead of time, start planning ahead of time too is another good idea. What are you going to eat tomorrow? Just think about, okay, I'm going out to a dinner. I can have a quick research and say, I'm going to a place that I like to go to. It's called Tyson, right? It's a Thai place. I'm going to a Thai restaurant. What can I eat? All right, this is what I'm going to eat here. You prepare ahead of time. You tell yourself what you're going to eat, and it's so much more easier for you to stick to that as opposed to binging and getting out of control. So it's a really good idea to prepare ahead of time. And the fifth and final thing is that you want to make sure it's only on like Christmas Day, and be like, if you want to binge, if you want to gorge, I'm not advocating it. Like, I do it, but it's not the healthiest thing, right? But if you're going to binge on food, keep it to Christmas Day. Don't do the whole week of just going nuts, because that's when you're going to put on weight. This is the truth. You cannot put on weight overeating for one day. You will not do it. You cannot eat that much food that's going to put on a kilo of body fat or anything like that. But you know what's going to make the biggest difference is from now all the way until Christmas and after Christmas, okay? Christmas time is the time you go and eat. It's not, all right, I'm going to start now and I'm going to go every single day. I'm going to eat like shit. I'm going to drink alcohol, and then I'm going to face it on New Year's. That is when you're going to put on weight. So set yourself guidelines, set the days you're actually going to overeat, and just try and choose the healthiest options possible the other days. So that's the video, guys. That's the 5 simple ways you can do to avoid weight gain, all right, over this Christmas time. So number 1, making sure you fill up your first plate just full of veggies and lean protein. I guarantee you that is going to be one of the best things you can do. Number 2, try some form of intermittent fasting, so pushing your meals later on during the day. A lot of people don't have Christmas breakfast much, so wait till Christmas lunch or Christmas dinner. Third thing, don't mix alcohol with meals. Have your alcohol after the meal. Otherwise, what's going to happen is that you're just going to get a whole bunch of calories in at once. Number 4 is to make sure you prepare ahead of time. Think about what you're going to eat, set yourself some rules, stick to those rules. And number 5 is to not eat like shit every day. Make sure you keep it. If you're really going to binge, keep it to Christmas Day. You are not going to gain weight over one day. It's the accumulation of what you eat during this whole week or the whole rest of Christmas. So that's the video. Take action, start getting stuff sorted, and I guarantee you're going to be feeling so much better than most of the people. Speak to you guys next time.